Siomai a croeso cynnes. Welcome to What's Your Story? I'm James Owen, a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller, and I'm passionate about sharing stories. This podcast is all about business owners sharing their journey. We'll be speaking with directors, entrepreneurs, and creatives from all across Wales to learn from their experiences. We believe everyone has a story to tell. What's your story? Siomai a croeso cynnes, welcome back to What's Your Story. And I'm always excited about all the guests. Every guest that comes on this podcast always excites me to have conversations. And I'm very grateful to have somebody in the room who, within Llanelli and Carmarthenshire, has built a huge reputation and name for being a successful business owner and a brand that everyone recognises across the region. And the man in the hot seat today, he's a retired vet, a very successful businessman, an entrepreneur. He loves animals, but he also loves people. And in the hot seat today, for What's His Story, I have the founder of Burns Pet Food. It's John Burns himself. John, thank you so much. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for coming down to have a conversation with me today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. There's two things there I'd like to correct.
Correct. Go for it.
The first is this. I'm not in practice as a vet, but I'm not retired either. I still pay my membership, and it allows me to write the prescriptions or for friends or people, family even, for their animals. So I'm still a qualified.
You're still a practicing qualified vet.
I'm not practicing,
You're not practicing,
but I'm still a vet. And the second thing was, the company is called Burns Pet Nutrition, not Burns Pet Food. That's a mistake that we've come across a lot. People contact me wanting me to advertise, and they don't even get the name of the company right. And I think, you haven't done your homework here,
So I clearly haven't done my homework today.
Burns Pet Nutrition.
Burns Pet Nutrition.
Yes.
Well, it's probably, for me as a Llanelli boy, it's probably the brand that I've known and recognise. And when people talk about it locally, Burns Pet Food is what people say.
I'm sure you're right.
Burns Pet Nutrition.
Yeah,
that's the brand.
I'm a bit fussy about that one.
Well, I'm a bit fussy about my own brand, John. When you poured all your blood, sweat and tears into your own business and your brand, I understand the love and care for it, for certain. But there we go. Yeah. So corrections for the record for you listening and watching. So John, you're in a very different season of life now. You've ridden the wave of running a very successful business, one that brought tremendous success to you financially, but also within the people in the organisation. It's given lots of jobs to the community, and you've solved a really big problem within the pet industry. But before we get there, I've got lots of questions for you about your background and your identity. You were born in Ireland. You've got a Scottish accent. You live in Wales. You've been all over the place. So just give me a little bit about your background, John, today.
Indeed, well, I was born in Belfast, 1948. I think my father worked in the shipyards in Belfast during the war. My mother's from Belfast, my father from the west of Scotland. We moved to the west of Scotland when I was a baby, really, a toddler perhaps. I'm not sure exactly, maybe 2 or 3 years of age. So I was brought up there. The town where I grew up, called Darvel, which is in the west of Scotland, in Ayrshire. When I ask Scottish people, why is Darvel famous or ought to be famous, nobody knows. And the answer is that it's the birthplace of Sir Alexander Fleming, the discoverer of penicillin. He's one of the men of the millennium. But there's nothing much there. There's very little in the town to commemorate that, and people are not aware of it somehow, So, which I think is something to be immensely proud of.
And for you working in healthcare, that's quite something to be proud of, isn't it?
Of course it is, exactly. Aye. So, anyway, went to university, and I worked on a farm in my teen years, milking cows, and I wanted to have an outdoor life, So probably, I remember going to a careers convention at school, and I thought, let's look at teaching, forestry and veterinary science. And my parents were with me, and first interview I had, or meeting I had, was with somebody from veterinary science. And when I came out of that, I said to my parents, right, we can go home now. No need to go and see the others. I'd already decided that's what it was going to be, and so I went to vet school in Glasgow, 5 years there. When I graduated, I came down to Wales, to Whitland, to have an interview for a job. I didn't really want to come to work to Wales. I wanted to go and work in East Anglia, which I'd spent a little bit of time there as a student. But I took the job. I remember the vet saying, we'd like somebody to stay long term. And I said, yes, if I like it, I'll stay long term. But I was really thinking a year maybe would do. And 50 odd years later, I'm still here. So that's it.
That's quite a long-term job post then.
It was indeed. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Whitland, you found yourself in Whitland. Aye. You were there for many years as a practicing vet.
Not many years, 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yes. I took an interest. We didn't see many small animals then, but I saw enough to make me aware of the fact that small animals with, let's say, with health problems, you treat them with drugs, the problem would get better, the drugs would stop, and the problem would come back again. And I thought, well, that's not really the kind of thing I had in mind. I was expecting to be able to cure something and that would be that, but it wasn't like that at all. So I read an article about acupuncture, and this is after I'd been in Whitland for maybe 3 or 4 years. I thought that looks to be an additional string to the bow as far as therapy is concerned. So I went to London to do a course on acupuncture. I actually qualified as an acupuncturist from the British School of Acupuncture. But at the same time, I studied a movement called macrobiotics, which came from Japan, and the aim was to marry up traditional thinking with our Western way of life. And
is that macro or microbiotics?
Macro.
Macro.
It means large, macro, large life, that's it. Micro would be the opposite, of course.
I'm a macro then.
That's right, aye. And that was life-changing for me.
Really?
It was really studying human health and how nutrition affected that. The very basics would be that in the West we've abandoned our traditional way of eating, which is all grains. In Northern Europe, it would be oats, rye, barley. These would be traditional grains. Other parts of the world, it might be corn or brown rice and so on. But anyway, these are the traditional ways of eating for humans for thousands of years. Whole grains, vegetables, and meat would form a small part of the diet only. But we've turned that on its head, especially since the war, where the focus, the tendency now is to eat diet based mainly on meat and animal products, dairy, refined foods such as sugars, and we've abandoned the whole grains and vegetables way of life. And that's caused a lot of health issues, different health issues from before, where infectious disease was the big problem. That seems to be making a comeback here and there.
Yeah.
But in this place, we've substituted degenerative disease as major issues in the Western world. Diabetes, heart disease, obesity, mental health issues, cancer, and so on. These are all degenerative diseases. And I thought, as I said, this was life-changing for me. That I thought I was going to be an acupuncturist, actually. That was after qualifying as such. But the truth of the matter is, although I did practice in Llanelli for a little while, on a part-time basis. I was also running a vet practice. It was too much, and but I wasn't really cut out to treat humans. I couldn't carry the mental responsibility for. I wasn't trained for it, and I wasn't used to it. So, but anyway,
You did try some acupuncture on pets as well, didn't you?
I did a little bit now and again, yes.
Which is quite a thing at the time.
It was, How
much of a challenge is it, getting a dog to be still for acupuncture?
Very difficult. They struggle, when it can hurt a wee bit, and then they move and the needles will get bent, and it was very time-consuming as well, So I had good results, but I had good results in humans too. But as I say, I found it too stressful for me, So
I'm interested. You mentioned that about food and.
Oh dear.
Oh, don't worry. That's okay. You mentioned about food and the links between. There's a lot of links between food for us as humans and dogs. And I guess, what we want to do. I'm a pet owner. I've got 2 dogs, and I'm quite conscious about what they eat and healthy foods, because it's very easy to go to the supermarket and just get dog food. It's convenient, isn't it?
There's rows and rows of them. Yeah.
Rows and rows of them. It's a big market, isn't it?
Exactly.
But I'm interested in, you mentioned about health issues we have as humans making a comeback. So on the understanding of grain, I'm really keen to know a bit more on food science then. Post-war there's been change. But grain, break that down for me. You've got your rye, your barley and things. What is considered healthy then in terms of grain? Is it that we should eat grain and all grain? Because in pet food specifically, the pet food I buy, sadly I don't buy Burns at the moment. It's quite expensive for me. But grain-free, that's a term marketed everywhere. So as humans, should we eat grain? Should we not eat grain? What do you think about that?
Well, to deal first of all with the pet side of things, the grain-free foods. You see, I was at a conference in America a few years ago, and one of the speakers said, grain-free is the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on the American pet-owning public. You see, but that was before Donald Trump, of course. So yeah. Anyway, so the idea that grains cause health issues, apart from maybe wheat. I never used wheat in any of my foods. But apart from that, grains they're very digestible. They're low fat, contain whole grains I'm talking about, contain minerals, and carbohydrate is the main constituents of grains, of course, but they also contain fibre, protein, vitamins. So the idea that pets shouldn't have them is, as I say, it's a fallacy. It's a mistake, really. My whole business, which is founded on health, uses grains, you see, so it's just a fallacy that's been marketed very successfully. And even vets do it. Oh, try grain-free, which is a lazy way of prescribing, actually, or changing diet,
It's very interesting, because the other day I was at the Castell food show, and I met somebody there who makes dog treats out of spent grain from breweries. So the company or the product was like brewery bites. And I often frequent to a friend's place that sells beer in Llanelli. And I thought, Beer Park is called. Brewery bites, beer. Oh, my mate Dave, he's going to have these in his shop, right? Because it's dog friendly. They take dogs there, So I thought, oh, it's great. I tried on my dogs. The dogs just didn't like it. Oh, well, they loved it, but I don't think it was good for the digestive system because they weren't very well after it. But the food we give them is grain-free. So my thinking was, maybe they shouldn't have grain, right? Because they're not very well after having it. But it's interesting you're saying that it's a fallacy. Dogs should have grain, and we as humans should also have grain.
Yeah. Well, one of my products was grain-free, but that was brought about mainly because people wanted a grain-free food. But it was a carbohydrate. But funnily enough, it was the one the dogs seemed to like best. It seemed to be the tastiest. So, but yeah, it's wrong to say that dogs shouldn't have grains. Another big trend in the pet food market is raw feeding, which is also called the I don't know, BARF, biologically appropriate, wrong again, and so on. You see, so there's lots of misinformation out there, really, and they're heavily these things are heavily marketed and they catch on, So
that's the thing.
That's a big challenge.
Big challenge,
for me in my business, yes.
Big challenge, of course, and for you really cared about the animals that you were caring for. You've seen a bit of a problem, and this is where I guess Burns Pet Nutrition started many years ago. You wanted dogs and animals to have healthy foods, and for what you could see on the market, it didn't exist here in Wales.
That's
so you went about solving that problem.
Or anywhere.
Or anywhere?
Yeah.
Really, across the world?
Yeah, that's right. Aye.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Beyond this business idea, so tell me a bit about the story about how it started, how you started then as a manufacturer of pet nutrition.
Yes, indeed. Well, we have to go back to the late 80s where in my practice I'd recommend to my clients to feed homemade brown rice, vegetables, a bit of meat, a third of each, home cooked. That worked very well, get some great results when people did that. We used to sell the brown rice in the surgery by the pound, people come in and they buy their rice. Other practices, they'd go to get repeat prescriptions. In my practice, they came to get their supplies of brown rice.
A rice wholesaler.
That's a retailer, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And I beat that drum. Most people didn't want to be bothered with that, which is understandable, of course.
It's a lot of effort, isn't it?
It's a lot of work. It's time-consuming. Yeah,
I can just about cook my own food.
I was just going to say that exactly. A lot of people don't cook for themselves hardly, never mind for the dog. Yeah. So I beat that drum for a number of years, really, while at the same time looking into how to do this on a commercial basis, so that it would be convenient. And I thought, first of all, we might look at buying boilers and packaging equipment and how do you preserve it and so on. Difficult issue. But eventually I found out you could get there may be somebody out there who would make the food for me in a commercial form, you see. And, this in itself is it's a story in its own right, this, really, I was advised to go and see a professor of animal nutrition at Liverpool, and he said to me, "You haven't a chance of making this work." He said, "People will speak to you.
Yeah.
Manufacturers will speak to you, but they won't stop their production lines and change it to what you want." You see, so, and my wife and I, we went to Sweden, United States, speaking to manufacturers, but we couldn't get anybody to make food for us. And then I found one in Llandovery just up the road, so...
but all these manufacturers were willing to make you the food, but they wouldn't make it the way you wanted.
No, they were willing to put what they were already making into my packaging so that I could promote it, pass it off, whatever you like to call it, promote it as my own brand, but it wasn't what I wanted, So I had this quite clear idea that it had to be whole brown rice based, So, and that was the stumbling block, really.
And he found somebody in all places, Llandovery. So there was somebody in Wales who was able to do it.
That's right. Aye. So that I remember. We agreed he would make a ton for me. You see, and I thought I'm going to take a chance here. I phoned him up and said, "Make it 2 ton." You see, so. Yeah, so when this 2 tons of food arrived in a plain polythene sack, and I had labels printed in Kidwelly, and we peeled the labels off. They weren't labels; they were leaflets, and put some glue on the back of them and stuck them in the bags. You see, and the leaflet was a promotional leaflet, but it also doubled up as a label on the bag. So and. I remember ringing the veterinary wholesaler I'd used when I'd been in practice, and I said, I've got this food, do you think you'd put it on your list and product? And he said, no, he said. I said, why not? He said, well, nobody's heard of you. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody's going to buy it. He said, my advice to you, best advice I ever had, I think. My advice to you is you exploit your local contacts. Go around the local vets, the local pet shops in your area, and see if you can get it going that way. And that's what I did. I used to load up my car with these bags of food and go around to the vets in West Wales and the pet shops as well. I'd come back with an empty car.
Really?
Really.
That's where it started?
Yes, indeed. Every pet shop, and nearly everyone would take it on, would take a couple of bags. And I remember a vet in Haverfordwest phoning me up. He says, we're coming to the crunch point here. He says, it's now time for people to see if they'll come back and buy a second bag. And of course they did. So it went from there really. For over a year, we were only based in West Wales. Yeah.
And were you able to scale your production with your existing supplier? You found that supplier, and it was clearly selling. You built your reputation locally. It's a good point. The advice you had from that vet is nobody knows who you are, and when you're buying a product, you've got to trust the brand, haven't you? So, were you able to scale it early on?
Production wasn't an issue, just a case of I phoned the manufacturer and say I want a repeat order. You see, he was quite clever in the wrong way, really. Sometimes it would come in a white polythene sack. Sometimes it come in a blue polythene sack. Sometimes it come in a green polythene sack. It didn't stick to the same all the time, so instead of establishing some sort of identity, you know what I mean? And in those days, I didn't have my own bag manufacturer. I hadn't invested in that part of it, because you had to buy tens of thousands of bags, for a production run, you see. So that took a while, So, but getting the food itself made was not an issue. What was an issue was that the manufacturer copied not just my recipe for himself and his own brand, but he was making the same health claims as I was making, So he's piggybacking off my knowledge and advice.
Interesting.
So I had to. So almost from day one, I was looking around for an alternative manufacturer. You see, but I did get one, maybe after another year or so.
That didn't set you back then.
No, not really. No.
Good.
But it was a case of just more of the same for the next number of years, really. Yeah.
And you must have reached a point where then you were able to bring all that in-house and invest, because I think it's very easy for anyone to sell a product and find somebody to make it, but to do it all in-house takes significant investment, doesn't it?
I never did that. Well, with the dry food, I always had that outsourced. I used 3 or 4 different manufacturers over the years. I might change for one reason or another. But the only in-house production we did was when we had a wet food as well. And that was almost a carbon copy of what I used to recommend for home cooking. We set up a factory in Buryport, and we cooked brown rice, vegetables and meat and packaged that there. But that, as I say, that was a throwback to what I was recommending for homemade.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right.
Fantastic. I guess that picking the right partners to supply is very important. But from the off, it was important that you could find somebody to partner with in your business that would make the things that you wanted, because that for you was the important thing. It wasn't just you want to get your name out there and sell some stuff with your name on it. It was the fact you wanted to sell product that was good and healthy for the pets, and that's always been the centre for your business and your brand.
Right. In retrospect, perhaps I should have looked at manufacturing it myself, but I didn't do that. It's a huge investment involved.
I can imagine some of the factories you'd have been to in Sweden and America. bit of a different beast.
Oh yes, absolutely. Aye. I mean, although we were a very successful business, we're still tiny in that large market, So I worked it out. Based on the amount of food I was selling, I might have had 200,000 customers. The dog population of the UK is about 9 or 10 million, so that's the size of the market we had. What's the percentage of that? 200,000 out of 9 million. It's small, isn't it?
Still, for
we're very small.
A business in Wales to do that is good going.
Yes,
that is fantastic, John.
You're right. It really was.
Yeah, it was. 200,000 customers. A lot of customers.
A small share of the market, a very big market. So.
But for a small business, a small share of the market on a national scale. But for how many were you employing at the time? You're talking. We were a team of 30 staff.
Well, I think we probably had 100 and more.
Wow.
Between office staff and with reps, we weren't living locally. We had the manufacturing in Bury Port, we had warehousing as well. So, we'd employ 100 people easy.
Wow.
Maybe 100. I think I counted 120 at one point. So.
Have you had great success exporting outside of Wales? Obviously, the UK, I think that's quite easy to do. Did your food go outside the UK to lots of different markets?
We're here and there. Yeah, it wasn't huge, except in Ireland. We had a successful business. 10% of our business was actually in Ireland.
Wow!
But there was a reason for that, and that was that my sister-in-law became a distributor in Ireland. You see, and. So she did a good job of marketing it there. So it was very successful there. Yeah.
Fantastic. So small percentage of the market share, but for 100 staff for an SME in Wales, I'm sure that brought significant financial benefit to those working and the local economy.
Yeah, indeed.
Because actually, small businesses, SMEs, is the backbone of the UK.
Yeah, of course.
60, what is it? I think I learned yesterday at an event, about 62 or 65% of the UK businesses are SMEs.
Yes, I don't doubt it.
It's very, very important to the UK. And there's a lot going on in the industry now, and the economy, the government, it's tough. It's tough running small businesses these days.
Of course, it is. Getting more so, I think. Really difficult.
So you came to a decision, selling the business. Was that something that we were approached? Was it you thinking it's time to hang my boots up as a rugby player? I might say that.
Oh, right.
What was the thinking behind selling the business?
Over the years, I had approaches once or twice a year. Lots of them, but. It was never my plan to do that, really. That I hoped that the business would carry on, pass on to the family, perhaps. But we got some hard knocks. Brexit was a big disaster for us. The cost of paperwork and cost of materials, cost of everything rocketed. The bureaucracy, unbelievable. And so that was a big blow.
And I can imagine being in Ireland with a lot of your business in Ireland, Brexit played a big part in that.
And that applied even to Northern Ireland. The regulations applied to there as well. So we had to get veterinary inspections and certification. We had to employ somebody just to handle that. So that was very damaging financially to the business. Lots of businesses have recorded that, but nobody's prepared. Nobody in government is prepared to face up to that. What a disaster it's been, So anyway, that's one. And then COVID come along. Then the cost of living crisis. We're a bit slow in reacting to that. I found it quite stressful. But competition as well. Lots of big money investors come into business, new brands making outrageous claims. We already mentioned the grain-free thing. It was the opposite philosophy of what I was doing. The raw food philosophy, again, the opposite of what I was doing. So it was all very tough indeed. Yeah. So I just found it a bit stressful, very stressful actually. So probably that's changed my mind to sell it.
And yeah, if you're responsible for 100 staff,
that's a big.
It is a big responsibility.
Absolutely.
And I imagine you've probably had sleepless nights over the years, worrying, stressing about business.
Well, we just live the business, don't you? You have to almost, you have to. Yeah.
So somebody knocked really hard for you to go, okay, I think this is a good opportunity.
Well, I thought, I think it was the continued stress that did it, So that's what finally made me decide to sell up, which I'm not entirely sure I did the right thing even now, So.
But who knows? We all get we all overthink decisions, and did I make the best decision? I think. Can we ever be satisfied with our decisions as entrepreneurs? I don't know. I'm interested to know, because you've got family. You could have kept it within the family and passed it on, and could have given it to your children to fix and solve. But was part of you thinking, it is a big challenge, I don't want to pass that risk on to my family? Did that come into play?
I think so. Yes, it's a big responsibility. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Have they got the enthusiasm, the dedication that I had? Probably might have done, but I just didn't do it,
So you sold.
Maybe I should have done.
Maybe you should have done. Who knows? You can't turn back time. But you sold the business. You sold it for a couple of quid. So you're an investor now. We had offline, we had a conversation about other people asking you to support in their businesses. But you're very busy now with the foundation. Something that's really important to you is giving back to the community. You live in Kidwelly, you built the business in Kidwelly, and you've got the fantastic John Burns Centre there now, and you've got the foundation, which you've had for many years. For 15 years, I think the foundation's been going.
Maybe a bit more.
Maybe a bit more.
Yeah.
So that's where you spend a lot of your time now, is now on the charitable work of the foundation.
Yes, that's right. Aye.
So tell me a bit about what does the foundation do to help people in our community? What sort of activities do you do in the foundation?
Well, for a number of years, all we did was put money into the foundation, and then we gave donations to individuals, maybe students to travel abroad, for example, or with groups like brass band, rugby, netball, cricket, you name it. We were supporting lots. We were giving them cash to carry on their activities, you see. But we didn't do anything other than that. But maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I said, I'd like us to do our own activities as well. And so we set up the Reading with Dogs scheme, which whereby we train volunteers and their dogs. The dogs, of course, are conscripts, but they go into schools, and children who are maybe a bit lacking in confidence or a bit slow at reading, they get a chance to read to the dog, and it boosts that confidence. And
wow.
Yeah, it's very rewarding, that kind of thing, So we have our volunteers going to, I don't know, 70 or 80 schools in Wales, in South Wales.
Mainly primary schools?
Mainly.
Because thinking about it, teenagers probably know how to read, or most of them.
Well, they have their own problems too, don't they? Yeah, maybe more so sometimes.
Yes, very true.
Yeah. We have gone into Pembrokeshire College for students there before their exams and give them a chance to meet. They may not read to the dog, but they help. It's well known, animals, that interaction with animals of all sorts helps in many ways, So
I can imagine it bringing a lot of joy to the kids, seeing the dogs go into these schools.
Oh yeah, you hear children they don't like going to school except on Thursday when the dog comes, that kind of thing, And one school, where it was a Welsh language school, one of the teachers said that little boy had said, hello, Kun, first time he'd spoken in a year. He'd been going to school for over a year and he hadn't uttered a word.
Wow.
But spoke to the dog, so that's quite, that's very rewarding, isn't it?
Incredible.
A bit of a result, but that's an extreme example. But
hello, Kun.
Kun, that's it.
Hello, dog. Show my dog. That's crazy. Yes. I bet the teacher was gobsmacked.
No doubt.
Probably.
I wasn't there. I just heard the story, but yes.
Because I can imagine for the teacher, probably a little frustrated. Oh, I want to get this person to learn and to speak. The dog did it. Wow, incredible.
Yes.
So that's the reason you get out of bed in the morning these days, is to do things like that.
Aye. But that's just you might call our flagship scheme. We also have the centre where we provide a space for classes, exercise classes for young and old, children's activities. Schools come along, the children do a bit of gardening perhaps, and or making things, so all sorts of human-based activities rather than, it's not a dog charity, it's not an animal charity as such. It's more about humans.
More about the people. Now, when you were obviously owner of the business, you had the huge advantage of doing what you wanted in the business, and you funded the charitable work through the business. And it's quite clear you're a generous man, and you were able to do that and to contribute. But now you're in the hot seat of the charity and no longer get the support of the business because it's now owned by new owners. You're now seeing a significant challenge in the third sector because everyone in Wales, third sector charities, everyone's fighting for money, and it's tough.
It's tough, it is indeed. We're living off our fat a little bit, but that won't last for long, If our charity is going to be sustained long term, we have to get funding, and that is the challenge that every charity has, So.
It is tough. It is tough out there. But it's great to hear about the work you're doing, the John Burns Foundation and the centre itself. Been there before, taking my dogs up the dog park. They love going up there.
Have you been in the building?
I've never been in the building.
Oh, you should call in and have a look.
Well, I'll have to call in. Do you have coffee there?
Yes.
There you are. We'll have a coffee in the centre. In fact, I've heard of several events that have been hosted in the centre, but I've never actually been there. Because is it like a conference facility?
Yes, that's one of the things we do. We have conference rooms with different sizes, actually. Yeah, so quite a lot of that. But that provides a space, but it also provides a revenue towards the running of the foundation.
Yeah. Which is good. It's good to keep things going. Fantastic. I'd love to ask you, John, gotten to hear a little bit about your story. Not as a retired vet, because you're not retired.
No.
But it's been fantastic to hear insight in the business journey and your life's work, caring for people and animals largely. If you could spend an hour here sitting in and listening to somebody's story, whose story would you like to hear, John? I'm really keen to know that. We ask all our guests, and it could be somebody in the industry, in the pet food, nutrition, maybe a GP, somebody in health. Whose story would you love to hear?
It's funny, you asked me that a little while ago, and I thought, who would I can't think of anybody. But actually, sounds a bit twee perhaps, but I think I'd love to interview my mother. Get her life story. And I think we missed out a lot, and probably children do. They don't get the story from their families, And,
That's whose story you'd love to hear.
Yeah, I sometimes quote her, but I think I should have got more of the story, So, yeah.
And forgive me, your mother, was she in your life for a long, long time, or did you lose your mother?
No, she lived till she was 90 odd.
Wow.
But living in Scotland, you see, so and I was down here for 50 years, so it was only just by phone call and, and visits, of course. Yeah. But as I say, well, I sometimes quote things. She was from Belfast, and we'd hear the odd snippet through our lifetimes, about people and things, and she's not educated. She worked in a cigarette factory when she was young, so not formally educated, but bright. And,
Are there any quotes or say-ins or statements that you've held on to that maybe inspire you when things are tough?
You're asking a lot for me to remember them, you need something to jog your memory so often, But one thing she'd often say, eaten bread is soon forgotten, By that she means you do something for somebody, but they soon forget about it, when the time comes.
So, that's an interesting saying there. Eating bread,
soon
forgotten.
Yeah.
I forgot that literally after saying it. But that's brilliant. Yeah, to hear your mother's story, that would be special for you, and that'd be great. Well, John, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. The charitable work still goes on. For those who are maybe want to know more about you and the charity, what can people do to learn more? Or maybe somebody's been listening or watching and they want to volunteer in the charity. What's the best way they can engage with the charity, John?
We'll contact the charity itself, the John Burns Foundation. Yeah, we feel that one of the best ways of making it more sustainable is through having volunteers, but not only to do what we're already doing, but perhaps to expand the activities that we do. Having people who've got a skill or knowledge or time, they could maybe initiate things that we're not doing, and I think that would be very valuable, wouldn't it? There's lots of volunteering brings its own rewards. Of course, it's well known, that it's very satisfying for the person themselves to do that.
No, I'd agree with that. I volunteer. I wear lots of different hats, and charities, sports clubs, churches, all types of organisations rely on volunteers. So it's a very important thing to do. I think anyone should at least volunteer in some capacity, somewhere in their community, of course. I'm excited to come and see the John Burns Centre. I'll come up and grab a coffee one day soon, John. Thank you so much for coming on. And I said offline, for me to hear your business story was something I was very excited about hearing, because, I think that in Wales, and especially in Carmarthenshire, I think we punch above our weight in the business world.
Really?
We've got some very successful businesses locally, and I think sometimes even the people in the region don't even know about what's going on, and don't actually appreciate the success businesses like yours bring to the economy. Because as I said earlier, it's the SMEs that are the backbone of this country. And for the likes of yourselves, as Burns, Pet Nutrition, what amazing stuff you've done in the community as a business is incredible. So, to take time out your day to come down to Llanelli and see me, I'm very grateful. And I'm really inspired hearing your business journey, John. So, thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for coming down and sharing your own personal story.
I've got to ask you, what are you feeding your dogs?
I currently feed them Wainwrights.
I know.
That's the brand.
That's Pets at Home own brand.
Yes, it is. Which I believe is grain-free. Yeah.
Right, aye. You know the Consumers Association, which magazine? Consumers Association?
Yes, yeah.
They're, as the name tells you, they represent consumers, and they've done surveys of pet food customers and what they feed their pets. And since they've initiated that about 4 years ago, Burns has come top every time.
Wow.
Yeah. Wainwright's down near the bottom.
Is it really?
In customer score. And Burns is the only one that gets 5-star rating for animal well-being. So, and that's against all the major brands of the Western world. Burns has come on top every year.
Well, fantastic. So I'm going to have to consider switching to Burns after this.
It costs a wee bit more, but as my brother would often say, if you think education's expensive, try the alternative. And same with pet food. If you think it's expensive, try the alternative. Food is cheap, but vet bills are not.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, there were his last words on the podcast. He had to get the sales pitch in a bit.
Yes,
so
great. Never miss a chance.
Brilliant, John. Thank you so much. Diolch yn fawr. Thanks for coming on. And wish you all the best with the foundation. And I'm excited to come up and see you and grab a coffee. Thanks for listening to What's Your Story? If you enjoy this conversation, I would encourage you to subscribe on your favourite podcast platform, whether that's Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and the rest, because we don't want you to miss out on future episodes. Sharing these stories really helps us reach more people. And if you know someone in Wales or beyond with a great story to tell, let us know, because we believe everyone has a story. Diolch am gwrando. Thank you for listening. We will see you in the next episode.